The famous pianist froze. His hands trembled, his jaw dropped, and the entire concert hall went silent. Why? Because the blind boy sitting at the piano had just played something no one on earth had ever heard before. A gift so rare, so unbelievable. It left even the greatest masters speechless. But how did a poor blind boy end up on the biggest stage of his life? Stay with me, because this story will shock you at every turn. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, because you won't want to miss more stories like this. 1. It all began in a small, forgotten neighborhood where music was nothing more than a distant dream. A young black boy named Daniel had been blind since birth. He couldn't see the world, but he could hear it more deeply than anyone else. The sound of raindrops on the roof, the rhythm of footsteps on the street, even the soft hum of the refrigerator. Daniel turned every sound into music inside his mind. But there was one problem. His family was so poor, they couldn't even afford a broken piano, let alone lessons. Daniel's mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses by day and serving in a diner at night, just to put food on the table. She often told him, "Baby, I can't give you much, but I believe God gave you something special. One day, the world will hear it." Those words burned in Daniel's heart. One day, fate intervened. A famous pianist, a world-class maestro, named Victor Laurent, came to Daniel's city to perform. Tickets cost more than Daniel's family made in a month, but Daniel didn't need a ticket. He simply walked to the back alley behind the Grand Theater and listened through the open vents. Every note Victor played, Daniel memorized. He didn't just hear the music, he felt it in his soul. But what happened next was nothing short of destiny. After the concert, Victor came outside, signing autographs for fans. Daniel, clutching a broken toy keyboard he had found in the trash, asked in a trembling voice, "Sir, can you play something just for fun?" The crowd laughed. Some mocked the boy. But Victor, curious, handed the boy a chance. "Why don't you play for us instead?" The people scoffed. How could a blind, poor child know anything about music? Yet Daniel's small fingers touched the keys, and in that moment, silence fell. What poured out wasn't just music. It was raw emotion, pain, hope, struggle, and joy all woven together. He played Victor's most difficult piece perfectly, even though he had never touched a real piano before. Gasps filled the air. One woman burst into tears. "And Victor?" He stood frozen, shaking his head in disbelief. He whispered, This boy is not playing notes. He is playing life itself." News spread like wildfire. Reporters rushed to cover the story of the blind boy with an unbelievable gift. But just as Daniel's life seemed ready to change forever, a cruel twist hit. A wealthy sponsor stepped in, but not to help. Instead, he tried to exploit Daniel, using him as a sideshow, act to make money. Daniel's mother refused, saying, "My son's gift is not for sale." But that decision came at a cost. They were thrown back into poverty, mocked for turning down the opportunity. Yet Victor Laurent, the pianist, couldn't sleep. He knew talent like Daniel's came once in a generation. He visited Daniel's home, sat with his mother, and said, "I will not let this gift be buried. He belongs on the world stage." But getting there wasn't easy. Daniel faced endless challenges, racism, criticism, and cruel words that he would never make it, because he was blind. Yet every obstacle only fueled his fire. He practiced by listening to recordings, memorizing every note, every pause, every silence. While others needed sheet music, Daniel only needed his ears and his heart. Years passed. Finally, the moment came. Daniel was invited to perform at the grandest stage in Europe. The hall was packed. Cameras flashed. Millions watched live around the world. At first, people doubted, how could a blind boy from the streets stand alongside legends? Then Daniel sat down at the piano. His mother held her breath in the front row. Victor whispered a prayer backstage, and when Daniel began to play, World stopped. His fingers danced, not guided by sight, but by soul. The music rose and fell like waves, telling the story of his life: struggle, pain, resilience, love. By the final note, the audience wasn't clapping, they were crying. Then, as silence broke, the entire hall stood up, clapping, cheering, roaring with admiration. The blind boy no one believed in had just outshone the greatest pianist alive. Victor himself walked onto the stage, bowed to Daniel, and said through tears, "Tonight, the teacher has become the student. You are the true master." That night, Daniel's life changed forever. He went from being the poor blind boy mocked in the streets to a global sensation. But through it all, he never forgot his mother's words. "Your gift is not just for you. It's for the world." And so, Daniel dedicated his career not to fame, not to money, but to teaching other children who had been told they could never achieve their dreams. Because Daniel knew the truth. Sometimes, the ones the world counts out are the ones with the greatest gifts of all.